Cecily Avers did not believe in mornings. They were a nuisance. Poorly designed concept that should have been left in history alongside corsets and landias at precisely 10:42. Her assistant poured oat milk into her turmeric latte, adjusted the cashmere throw around her shoulders, confirmed the day's schedule. Facial sculpting at 11. A trunk show in Soho at noon, lunch with influencers she barely remembered inviting at 1, and a blowout at 3, and your father. Called again, the assistant added delicately about the charity board meeting. Cecily waved her hand without looking up from her mirror. Tell him my soul is allergic to fluorescent lighting. The assistant didn't laugh. She rarely did these days. Meanwhile, across town, Brinrow ran to catch a train. His hair was still damp from a 3-minute shower. His shirt collar didn't quite match the tone of his blazer, but he was late. And his younger brother had taken the iron to flatten a poster. Bren had been hired only a week ago by Norwin Avers, skyscraper, of a man who controlled half the city's skyline and all of its elevators. I need someone who can keep up. Norwin had said bluntly. No fluff, no mess. Bren had nodded. He didn't do fluff or mess. Not since their mother passed, and the bills came in like waves with no tide to take them back. They met, as disasters often do, in the middle of someone else's crisis. Cecily stormed into her father's office like she owned it, which, technically, she might have. Based on inheritance projections, I told your secretary to book me a flight for this morning, she snapped, plopping her designer bag onto the polished desk. Yet here I am, grounded and aging. Bren looked up from his laptop. He's in a meeting, he said calmly. Cecil blinked. Who are you, Brenrow? Assistant to Mr. Avers. She raised an eyebrow. Since when do assistants wear shoes from clearance racks? Bren glanced at his scuffed brown Oxfords. Then back at her. Since they're too busy earning their rent to measure status by footwear? Cecily blinked again. Not used to being answered. Certainly not like that. You're very offensive, she said slowly. You're very loud, he replied. Silence. Then she burst out laughing. I like you, she declared. You're like a social experiment. I should study you. He didn't smile. Rather, you didn't. The next time they saw each other, Cecily was redecorating her father's guest office. Not personally, of course. She'd brought a team. Plants, pastel rugs, a full-length mirror that only reflected flattering angles. This is a workspace, Bren said, entering with a stack of reports. Not an influencer bunker. I require light, Cecily replied. Natural, curated, emotionally supportive light. The fluorescent bulbs are fine. They're a war crime. He paused. Do you even work here? Matcha smoothie. I'm his daughter. That's not a job. It's a full-time performance, she said with a grin. You try being the living embodiment of aesthetic legacy. Exhausting. Bren's life outside the office was less vivid. He lived in a small studio with his 17-year-old brother, Finn, who was finishing high school and experimenting with vegan cooking at night. Finn did freelance budgeting for startups. He brewed strong coffee. He read articles on urban development. Couldn't remember the last time he'd taken a full day off. On Saturday, he returned to the office to sort invoices and found Cecily asleep on the couch with a face mask on, and a half-eaten croissant near her elbow. You know there are actual homes for this, he muttered. Her eyes opened slowly. You again. Me still. She stretched lazily, the silk robe sliding off one shoulder. What are you doing here on a Saturday? Work. You? Waiting from brunch? He sat at the desk. Why? Is too many people pretending they're okay? She yawned. Moses. Should come with a therapy voucher. The third week brought conflict. CISO began interfering with Bren's tasks. Redirecting meetings. Rescheduling events without consulting him. I thought it would be cute if the investor luncheon became a picnic. She said sweetly in Central Park. With dogs. You canceled a 6-figure lunch with venture capitalists for a dog picnic. I brought rescue pups. Healing energy. Cecily. You're welcome. He stared at her. She stared back. You're trying to get me fired, he said. She shrugged. You're resilient. But not unshakable. That evening, Bren's brother was sick. The bills were overdue. His boss sent him an email titled, "Urgent Corrections, Midnight Required." He worked until 2, walked home. And by Monday, he looked like he hadn't slept in a year. "CSL might notice you look gray," she said. He said nothing that afternoon. She ordered 3 cases of matcha powder to his office as a joke, but left a note. "Take care of yourself. The Empire needs you awake." On Friday, their paths crossed in the parking garage. He was helping his brother load a busted keyboard into their shared car. Cecily pulled up in a luxury convertible and stared at the scene. "You drive?" she asked, amazed. "Some people do," he replied. Her gaze fell on his brother, who was laughing about how Bren still couldn't cook rice. "You live together?" "Yeah." "You do your own laundry?" "Yes, Cecily, and dishes, bills, and taxes. It's called real life." She looked at him like he was from another planet. Then she said, "Show me." "What? Your apartment? Your life?" "Real one." He hesitated. But later that night, she sat cross-legged on his worn couch, eating instant noodles and asking a million questions. "You own like 3 forks. Technically, this is kind of nice." He raised an eyebrow. "Not the furniture," she clarified. "The quiet." He offered her a pair of slippers. She grinned. "You're not so bad, Ro. You're exactly as chaotic as advertised." By the end of the night, she helped dry dishes. Her silk blouse was stained with soy sauce. Her high ponytail had fallen. Bren watched her laugh with Finn about something dumb. For the first time since she'd stormed into his world in 6-inch heels, he realized he didn't mind the noise anymore. Not all of it. Some of it felt like music. Monday arrived like a slap of cold water. Saya Wyaverse walked into her father's office with a smoothie in one hand and a mission in mind. "We need to talk," she said to Bren. Bren didn't even look up from his laptop. If this is about turning the boardroom into a meditation zone again, the answer is still no. Not that. She flopped into the guest chair, kicking off her designer heels. "Hey, I want to learn how to do what you do." He blinked. "Sorry, you heard me." She leaned forward, chin on palm. "I want to intern, shadow you. Learn to schedule things and deal with spreadsheets and talk to actual people without throwing glitter at them." Bren leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. "Why?" "Because..." She hesitated, then shrugged. "Maybe I'm bored. Maybe I'm tired of being a decoration in my own life. Maybe I want to know what being useful feels like." He stared at her. She grinned. "Don't look so shocked. I'm capable of self-awareness. Just takes a while to boot up." He sighed. "Fine. But if you show up in heels, you're out." Her first attempt at real work was a disaster. She color-coded a week's schedule using glitter gel pens, accidentally emailed the office memo to a yoga studio in Venice, and got locked in the copy room trying to find more staples. Progress. Bren said dryly when he found her kicking the door. "Don't judge me," she muttered. "Staplers are aggressive." He showed her how to fix the jam. She watched him like he was performing magic. "How do you stay so calm?" "Practice, caffeine, and a little bit of crying in private bathrooms," she laughed. By the end of week 2, things were different. Cisa stopped arriving late. She wore sneakers. She took notes, real ones, not doodles of flamingos, at lunch. They shared sandwiches and traded insults that sounded suspiciously like flirting. He called her Hurricane Barbie. She called him Robot Boy. And somewhere in the rhythm of deadlines and dry meetings, they started to lean into each other's gravity. It wasn't easy. Ciso's friends noticed her absence at parties. She got texts like, "Why are you ghosting us? You're not seriously working, right?" One night she missed a high-profile gala to help Bren finish a quarterly report. She stayed until midnight, eating stale cookies and listening to lo-fi playlists while he edited slides. "I don't get it," she said, watching him type. "You do all this for what? A paycheck?" He looked at her. "I do this so Finn can finish school, so I don't end up back where we started. And because someone needs to care if this place doesn't fall apart." She was quiet. Then she whispered, "I've never cared about anything that much. Maybe it's time you did." The next week, Norwin Avers called Bryn into his office. Cecil was there too. lounging on the windowsill. "You've been doing good work," Norwin said. "The board is impressed, and I've decided to promote you. More responsibility, higher pay." Bren glanced at Cecily. She gave him a thumbs up, then knocked over a water bottle. Classic. "Thank you," Bren said, recovering. "I appreciate the opportunity. You've also had a calming effect on my daughter," Norwin added, watching Cecily fumble with paper towels. "Miraculous, really." Bren smirked. "She has her moments." Cecily stuck her tongue out. Later, that day she dragged him to a small rooftop cafe tucked behind an art gallery. "This is where I go to think," she said, sliding him a cookie the size of his face. "You think rude?" They sat in silence, eating and watching the sunset paint the sky in sherbet tones. "So what happens now?" she asked. "I take the promotion. Keep working. Keep living without me." He glanced at her. "You're not leaving, are you?" She shrugged. "People like me always leave, or get replaced." He put the cookie down. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Pretend like you're disposable." She looked at him for a long moment. "What if I want to be more than just a rich girl with a closet full of unused shoes?" "And be more," he said. "You already are." The next day, she skipped her usual breakfast with the socialites and volunteered at a local shelter. Bren found out later when she showed up at work, covered in flour and joy, clutching a donation receipt. "I helped bake 72 muffins," she announced proudly. None were edible. "Progress," he said, smiling. But then the chaos returned. A major client accused the firm of negligence. Tensions rose. Deadlines loomed. Norwin blamed Bren for a miscommunication, and Bren took the fall. Cecily tried to intervene, but her father silenced her. "This is business," he snapped. "It's not a charity." He packed up quietly, dignity intact. That night, Cecily waited for him outside the building. "You didn't even fight for your job," she said, "because fighting would have made it worse." "For who?" "Me, my father. For everyone." "I know how this world works." She stared at him. "Then maybe I don't want this world anymore." 2 days passed. Bren didn't call. She didn't text. On the third day, she knocked on his door. Holding a box inside it were all the things she had taken for granted. A photo of her as a child with her mom. Her first planner with stickers still intact. A book she had once promised to read but never opened. And a letter. Handwritten, "You reminded me that life isn't about keeping score. It's about keeping promises. I'm sorry I let you walk away without saying thank you." He found her waiting outside their old office, holding 2 hot coffees and one very nervous smile. "Still have those sneakers?" she asked. He nodded. "Good," she said, handing him the cup. "You're going to need them." "Why?" "Because we're starting something new," she said, "and it's going to be messy and hard and beautiful." He raised an eyebrow. "Together?" "Yes, Brenro. Together." The first time in weeks, he laughed. Not the polite kind. The real kind. The kind that sounded like hope. 2 months later, the office buzzed with whispers. Norwin Avers was stepping down. Not retiring, just scaling back. Rumors said he was considering a fresh division, a softer arm of the empire, something more human-facing. The bigger shock? Cecily. Avers was spearheading the project. No more late nights at galas. No more headlines about yacht parties or spontaneous getaways. Instead, there were spreadsheets, coffee-stained notes, and a woman trying to turn her father's name into something less intimidating and more meaningful. She had help. Brenro sat beside her most days, not as an assistant, but as a partner. Not. Everyone understood it. But no one dared question it. The new division was called Foundation 11, a nod to the 11 nonprofits the company had overlooked for years. Their mission: bring design, funding, and visibility to overlooked grassroots. Work, say, sell, why, pitched it in a room full of old men with colder eyes. Bren stood beside her, not to speak, just to be there, steady the room with his silence. When the meeting ended, only one person applauded: her father. That night, They sat in a tiny noodle bar near the city bridge. Chopsticks clinked. Laughter floated. The air was warm with summer's last breath. You still think staplers are evil? Bren asked. Cecil Wright grinned. Only mildly cursed now. He smiled. You were brilliant today. Sweaty and over-caffeinated. Still brilliant. She looked at him then. The way someone does when they realize the thing they feared was actually the thing they needed, you know? She said, I used to think love was dramatic, like fireworks and broken vases and shouting in the rain. Now I think it's soup and paperwork. And you making me tea before meetings? He chuckled. I can shout in the rain if you want. No, stay dry. I like you better warm. The next few weeks were a blur of small victories. Foundation. Slevin got its first funding round. Bren moved into a better apartment. CECIL started mentoring interns, one of whom made the exact same mistake she did on her first day. She didn't yell, she laughed, then showed them how to fix it. One Saturday, they visited a ceramic studio. Setchel was terrible at it. Her cup looked like a crumpled hat. Bren's bowl was passable at best. But they made things together. Things that would harden in a kill and exist long after the moment passed. She wrote his name on the bottom of her cup. He wrote hers on the rim of his bowl. The instructor smiled but said nothing. At the company's winter banquet, Cecily wore a tailored navy suit and no jewelry. No glitz. No glitter. Just her. Bren wore the same black tie he'd worn his first day on the job. He stood by her side while she gave a speech that stunned the room into silence. We don't grow when things are easy, she said. We grow when someone holds up a mirror and says, I see more in you than you're showing. People clapped, politely. Dash earnestly. Bren held her hand under the table. Then came the press. Headlines like Heiress rebuilds reputation and Aver's empire finds a conscience. Cecily hated the attention. Bren grounded her. Remember, he said, you're not doing this to impress anyone. You're doing it because it's right. She kissed his cheek. And because you believed in me first. One evening, Cecily's old life came. Knocking an old Flama model with too much charm and too little depths showed up at an event uninvited. I miss the old you, he said. She's not home anymore, she replied. Bren watched from the corner, unreadable later. In the elevator, he asked, Do you? Miss the old me, she thought. Sometimes. She had fewer responsibilities and better shoes. He raised an eyebrow. But I wouldn't trade her back. Not even for Louboutin. It's serious, he teased. Deadly serious. Spring. Brought change. Foundation 11 expanded. Bren started teaching a night course on organizational ethics. Cecil cut her hair. Short, easy. Strong. People asked if she was becoming her mother. She said no. I'm becoming someone she would have been proud of. Bren bought her a paper crane necklace the night of her first TV interview. For flight, he said, and balance. She wore it like armor. They fought sometimes, about work, or time. Or the way Bren still insisted on walking 5 blocks out of the way for a cheaper coffee, but their fights weren't loud. They were quiet, sharp, and always followed by understanding that. It's the thing about them. They didn't need to win. They needed to keep going. One day, while sorting documents, Cecily found the old glitter-covered schedule she'd made her first week. She brought it to Bren's desk, holding it up like evidence. Look how far we've come, he smiled. You're still chaotic. Yes, but now it's organized chaos. He took the schedule, folded it, and placed it in the drawer where he kept the things that mattered. The summer, they turned Foundation 11 into a full nonprofit. Cecily gave a toast. This didn't happen because of luck, she said. It happened because someone walked into my life and refused to let me be less than I could be. Bren looked at her like he did that very first day, cautious, intrigued, and entirely undone. After the applause, she pulled him onto the rooftop, where the city lights blurred like stars. Do you believe in second chances? She asked. I believe in you. In a tiny box wrapped with a string was a porcelain ring dish shaped like a crane. Bren gave it to her on their 1-year anniversary. It's not a proposal, he said. Just a promise to keep showing up, to keep believing, to keep folding. Paper cranes, if that's what it takes. She placed it on her nightstand, next to her glasses and a book on sustainable leadership. Cecily Avers used to be a headline now. She was a chapter in stories of change, of empathy. Women who stopped waiting for the world to take them seriously and decided to write their own rules. And Bren Rowe, he was the punctuation in her story, not the ending, not the beginning, just the steady rhythm of someone who stayed. No fireworks, no broken vases, just a rooftop, a late-night laugh, and the sound of something quiet and permanent taking root, the kind of love that doesn't shout, it just holds on and keeps folding cranes.